eternal time.
Well, it seems you've become useful again.
Maybe it's time you let me get on with my job.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you another classic James Bond review, the last one featuring Pierce Brosnan, and it is 2002's Die Another Day. The film is directed by Lee Tamahori and stars, of course, Pierce Brosnan. We have Halle Berry, Rosamund Pike, Toby Stephens, Rick Yoon, Michael Madsen, John Cleese and Judi Dench. Now, this time round, James Bond, at the beginning of the film, is sent to investigate a connection between a North Korean terrorist and a diamond smuggling operation. And essentially, at the beginning, he kind of manages to break up the ring, and he thinks he kills the main bad guy. In an explosion, but he gets captured by the North Koreans, and he ends up being imprisoned and tortured for the next 18 months, I think it is, something like that. He is then released back into the hands of MI6, who believe that he cracked under the pressure, which he obviously didn't. He escapes and decides to go after Zhao and Gustav Graves, who appears to be smuggling diamonds, but turns out to actually be his nemesis, who we thought he killed earlier in the film. Right, what are my thoughts on Die Another Day? Well, I think it's fair to say that this one gets a lot of stick. It was, I mean, even though it was a huge hit, once again, all the Brosnan Bonds were big hits, really. This one, I think, has probably, in many people's eyes, aged the poorest, and probably critics turned on this one the fastest. It was very, very over the top, very outlandish, silly gadgets, poor CGI, over-the-top action sequences, and they really went hell for leather with this one, making it, in many ways, completely unbelievable in regards to Bond. Now, Bond has always been unbelievable, full of mad stunts, crazy gadgets, over-the-top villains, but everything in this film pretty much was dialed up to 11. They did not leave anything out of this film. They just went for it, and some of it worked, some of it didn't, and we'll talk about both. Now, what I do want to talk about is in what my opinion is, the first 30 minutes of this film is pretty flawless. I love the opening of this film where Bond gets captured, tortured. I thought it was fabulous, and then when he gets released, and that great scene between him and M, where he's obviously disappointed that he thinks that she thinks he cracked under pressure, and then he breaks out, goes to that hotel, gets himself tailored and shaved, and he's back in action. I think that whole, and because I timed it when I watched it, it's about 30 minutes. Brilliant. I love. I think it's one of the strongest openings of a Bond film. Of all of them, really. I just really, really like it. I've always liked it. Quite a dark start to a Bond film. Unfortunately, it doesn't continue that trend, because you would think after 18 months of being captured and tortured and all sorts of things done to him, he would be scarred in some way, like Daniel Craig was in Skyfall, was it? You know, he wasn't captured, but when he fell off the thing and he was out of action for such a long time, and he came back and he was just not really ready for action, you know, and then that continued that theme for much of the film. After the 30 minutes, once he kind of gets his groove back, so to speak, and it seems like, you know, a nice suit, a bit of food, and he's ready to go. And I just thought, that was such a shame, because the next scene is exchanging sexual innuendos with Halle Berry's character like nothing has happened, and it's just Bond's back as usual. And I do think that's a shame, because I think they had a missed opportunity there to kind of go for a darker tone in this film, and they never seized it. And I do actually think it's a shame that Pierce Brosnan, because this is his least favourite Bond, from my understanding, for the reasons that some of the reasons I've explained. I think it's a shame that he was never given the opportunity for one more film to explore the darker side of Bond, which is something he really wanted to do. That would have been a fascinating experiment, if you like, and I think he deserved that. He earned that, mainly through all the money that he made for the Bond franchise. So a good, strong start to the film, I think. Then it kind of starts losing its way a little bit, and that's not to say that I don't like it at all from that 30 minutes on. I do think there's some strong parts in it still. I think there's still some great action scenes. Halle Berry's fabulous as Jinx. I think she's a strong Bond girl. The Aston Martin is back, which is the first time since... Is it Living Daylights since we've had an Aston Martin back as Bond? But the flip side to that coin is they go and make it bloody invisible, which is one of the gripes many people had. Yes, it's a Bond film. Yes, he's had some really mad gadgets over the years, but this one kind of stretched the believability factor a little bit too much. And then some of the things that I don't really like about this film. Not keen on the theme song by Madonna, and then Madonna's cameo I think is a waste of time. It's chocked full, this film, of sexual innuendos left, right and centre. These sexual wisecracks from everybody. From Bond, from Jinx, from Rosamund Pike's character, Miranda Frost. I mean, they're literally all over the place in this film, and they get very, very tiresome. You can get away with maybe, certainly one in a Bond film. It's almost like he's winking at the audience, like it's expected, but this is just, they're everywhere in this film. Toby Stephens as Gustav Graves is just maniacal, and it's just over the top, his character. And it makes no sense at all, his character. It makes absolutely no sense, because he's supposed to basically be, is it Moon? The guy who he's supposed to kills at the beginning of the film, and he's had his face sorted to turn him into this Gustav Graves character. But the first time we meet, it doesn't make any sense, because the first time we meet Gustav Graves, is this high society, well-known person in England, London, who apparently is about to be knighted. He's got his own, company, well-established. Well, he only existed 18 months before. It just doesn't make sense. The bit about changing face and stuff, I don't have a problem with, because we saw that in much earlier Bond films. That technology being played around with. So I can't call that in this film, because they have used that in other Bond films as well. But I just do not like Gustav Graves as a villain, played by Toby Stephens. It's massively over the top and really actually quite annoying. There's some really poor CGI here and there in this one. I mean, the surfing thing with the parachute is just awful. The bloody ice palace looks fabulous, great set piece, but totally impractical and bloody stupid at the end of the day. And yeah, I suppose it sounds like I'm being overly critical of this one. I think this falls into the category for me of like a guilty pleasure Bond film, almost like Moonraker a lot. I prefer Moonraker to this, but there are some Bond films where you've got to kind of definitely click your brain off and just kind of watch it for what it is, and this is an over-the-top, outlandish, ridiculous Bond film. Like I say, with everything dialed up, everything over the top. And they just absolutely went for it in this one, and a lot of it didn't work, but some of it did. A lot of people say this is like the worst Bond film of all time. I don't agree with that, but it's definitely, I think, the worst of the Brosnan era. So let me know, guys, what your thoughts are on Die Another Day. That's pretty much everybody's Bonds that I have reviewed now. I've been from right from Doctor No right through to Die Another Day. It's on to the Daniel Craig's next. However, I've already reviewed some of the Daniel Craig ones from a couple of years ago, so I will add them to the playlist, and then I'll see where I am with them, and then I'll catch up with the Daniel Craig ones in a few weeks' time. I've thoroughly enjoyed revisiting the classic Bonds leading up to the end of the Brosnan films. I've really enjoyed checking them all out, watching them all in sequence, and I've definitely enjoyed sharing my thoughts with you guys on the films and reading your comments about the Bond films as well. So thanks very much, guys, for joining me for this series of reviews, and I will, of course, see you on the next one.